You are now entering a dangerous liberty zone where God-given natural rights are held sacred and exercised. This is your warning. Tyranny, fascism, and censorship will not be tolerated. Ideas will be exchanged freely. Rigorous debate and open discourse is encouraged. If you are weak and your beliefs are fragile, you should leave now. Prepare yourself. We are now live on the Dangerous Liberty Podcast. Well, happy Wednesday, everybody. Hey, welcome to the Dangerous Liberty Podcast, where we know the only thing that's more dangerous than liberty is the lack thereof. We want to welcome everybody that's showing up now, everybody that's tuning in on the future. We already got some folks coming in. We will get to you in just a second. Summer, how was your week? Another wonderful week married to me.
Yeah, it's good.
Lucky.
Oh, dear God. Jesus.
I was more excited about things that came in a shop than that, but no.
Truth be told.
You know, there's a sense of pride that I have just now that my wife is getting excited about, optics coming in, new guns coming in.
Your brainwashing is working, Gary.
It's taken, almost 20 years to train you, but we're getting there. Chris, how was your week, buddy?
Doing it, baby. Still off.
All right. Still got another 6 months of paternity leave.
Yeah, 6, carry the 2. Yeah, something
like that. Yeah. Jason, how was your week, buddy?
It's all right. Just hanging in there. We my little kid came in this week.
I was about to say.
Hey, everybody. Give Jason a big round of applause.
Congratulations,
his
Jason.
wife had a baby.
Yeah, I mean, I did in theory.
I mean, Jay did most of the work. I mean, I get it.
A lot of work
I get it. I get it, Jay.
No,
we're both fresh dads.
That's super cool.
His first
Jason.
child, too.
I didn't think you would ever have kids.
First
I'm
child.
still not
I didn't
sure
think
that
so either.
you should be allowed to have kids.
not disagreeing with you.
No, man, I'm really proud of you, buddy. Seriously. We also got Matt back there behind it. We don't have a mic for Matt, but Matt jumped in here.
Hey, Matt.
He's keeping Jason straight back there.
Yeah. Good luck with that.
That's a task in its own.
Well, folks, we want to welcome everybody that's tuning in right now. We got Jason's sponsor. We got Justin, Willie Everett, John Esmond. We got Kyle up there, John Walsh. We got the other, Jeff, Mr. McSpook.
Matt.
Just remember, Jeff, MOA still sucks. John Hopen, John Esmond, Mike Hinn, everybody. Hey, we always appreciate you guys tuning in. All of our Lost Boys over there on Rumble.
Yep,
one of these days, Rumble's going to pull their head out of their butt and actually integrate to where we can get all your comments
everything
on
on
here.
Facebook.
We got UFO for the hose over there. Otter, Will Rhett.
Chris Bishop.
Chris, it was nice talking to you this week.
Yeah, man. We always enjoy all the interaction that we have with all our clients, and again, we're only here because of you guys, and we want you to know that we really do appreciate it. But enough about all that, folks. We have a very special guest on tonight. I'm going to let him introduce himself, but again, we really appreciate his time. This guy is just a wealth of knowledge when it comes to all things guns, rifles, you name it. Yeah, we're just really proud to have him on tonight. But anyways, I want to welcome the owner of MasterPiece Arms, the one and only Phil Cashin. Welcome, Phil.
Hey, guys. You guys doing okay tonight?
We're doing great, man. How are you guys doing?
Oh, everything's good down here in Georgia. Hey, man, I really like that intro at the beginning of the podcast. That kind of defines the program, which is nice.
This is how I knew it was good, Phil. Number
That's
one,
for the faint of heart, you believe right now.
It.
I like that. Yes.
It's because I believe it. I knew it was good. But besides that, Jason hated it. So I was like, it's good. We know it's good.
A win-win. There you go.
The world's going to love it.
That's right.
Excellent.
No, we really appreciate you coming on tonight. And again, for most people, I think, that are filling up our comments know who you are, or at least know about you. But if you want to, just take a couple of minutes and introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about you, and let's go from there.
Okay. Well, my name is Phil Cashin, and I own MasterPiece Arms. Down here, we're located in a little town about an hour and a half northeast of Atlanta called Comer, Georgia, which maybe no one on this listening has been to Comer, Georgia before. A little small town just outside of Athens.
Jay.
Yeah, I went to school at the university.
Oh, the other one, Jay. Jesus. There you go.
Okay. Let's see here. And let's see, I'm 58 years old. I've lived in Georgia all my life. And I'm married. I have 4 children. Been married to my wife, Kelly, for oh gosh, 25 years coming up in January.
Oh, wow.
And so I got a wonderful wife, and just you know, I'm a blessed man in a lot of ways, and you know, so it's just, yeah. Thank you for having me on tonight. It's a pleasure, and I certainly appreciate the time.
Phil, you said you went to University of Georgia.
I did.
That's my alma mater as well.
Really, yeah. It's you know, it's changed a lot since. Well, I know when I was there, but you know, it's still a great college, and you know, I'm a big sports fan. I love sports. You know, I've been competing in the sports my whole life, and you know, it's good to see the Bulldogs doing well this
Yep.
year, and hopefully they'll make it a trifecta and win the national championship again. That'd be pretty
Yep.
cool.
Yep.
So
No, I haven't been back since the day I graduated, but you know, that was 20 years ago now. Yeah. So
I
anyway.
think the appearance of Athens is about the same. I think the makeup of it used to be kind of a right leaning institution with a lot of, you know, hunters and gun loving and, you know, patriots that go there, and I think it's been infiltrated like a lot of institutions by those who don't fall into that category. So that's a
Right.
bit
I think most
unfortunate, but
colleges and universities across the country are that way now.
yeah, absolutely. So, but anyway, but yeah, that's who I am.
So, Phil, how did you get involved with MPA? As far as I understand, I know it was MPA already existed before you took it over. So I've been curious to hear that story myself.
Well, it's kind of a neat story. So my background, when I got out of college, I went to work for a company that was a machine tool distributorship. They distributed different types of chip making machines, you know, CNC lathes, machining centers, grinders. And so I was with that company for quite a number of years. In 1997, I ended up buying one of my customers' companies and went from selling CNC machines to using them in a manufacturing capacity. And the company that I purchased, which is still part of our makeup, our corporate makeup, is called Engineering and Cycle, and it was basically a production job shop. And that business was plodding along nicely. And in 2008, a guy by the name of Gary Poole, who owned MasterPiece Arms, had reached out to us and basically said, "Hey, look, you know, how much is all my machinery worth?" You know, because of my background in the machine tool business, I had a pretty good idea about, you know, the marketability of the machines he had. He was ready to take his next step in life. He was ready to retire, move to the beach, and you know, what ended up happening was liquidated his assets and ended up with MasterPiece Arms. And so we left the operation in its operating capacity over in Carrollton, Georgia, for a period of time. And then this all happened in 2008, and then eventually we integrated it into our main manufacturing facility in Comer. And so at the time when this happened, we were doing a lot of OEM machining work for companies like John Deere and Case and ZF Industries and Bosch Rexroth. And, you know, it was a lot of really kind of high end machining and engineered components that we provided to these companies. And, you know, when I bought the gun company, I had no idea it was going to turn out the way that it has, and the life-changing effect that it's had on me and my family in a lot of different ways. But as the time went by, you know, making a firearm and being involved in that community with you know, the people that we work with, both customers and vendors and associates in this wonderful market that we're in, became much more attractive than making a transmission housing for a John Deere tractor. You know, so 2015, we decided that we were going to focus completely on our firearms business. And so we basically told all of our commercial customers that they needed to find another supplier. And then we focused strictly on, you know, designing and manufacturing our product of firearms.
So how'd you end up getting into, you know, long range specifically?
Well,
Or
so
just building rifles specifically, I guess, and, you know,
well,
precision
yeah.
rifles.
Well, that's a great question. You know, the history of our company of MasterPiece Arms was based on a clone of the submachine gun from MAC, Military Armament Corporation, that started in Powder Springs, Georgia, in the early '70s. my predecessor, who used to own MPA, started MPA because he was a supplier to another company that made those type of products. The guy that owned the other company, which is SWD, for some legal reasons, stopped making firearms, and Gary started MPA based on those, like, the Mac clones. We made them a 9mm and 45
Mac
ACP.
9s.
The M11-9 clones. But we call them our defenders. And so in 2013, when the market went crazy after the incident up at Sandy Hook, our biggest challenge was the manufacturing of barrels. That was our holdup. That was our limiting factor in our ability to supply the number of products that we wanted to the market. And I was talking to a guy named Dave Kiff, who is the owner of Pacific Tool and Gauge, and I was lamenting my challenge. Like, hey, look, who has barrel manufacturing equipment? Because nobody had it. I mean, the market was going crazy, and you reach out to the companies that manufacture the kind of machines that we were looking for, and you're looking at a 2 to 4 year lead time. And
Wow.
and he said, oh, by the way, hey, reach out to this guy named Clay Spencer. And Clay owned a company called Spencer Rifle Barrels up in outside of Winchester, Virginia. And Clay was a legend in the bench rest community. And I had no idea. He was a guy that he had some health issues. He wanted to sell his barrel manufacturing business. I happened to ask the question at the right time, and I reached out to him, and it happened like on a Tuesday. I called him at 9:30, and at 10 o'clock, I agreed to buy a barrel company. Just like it happened that quick. Like, he told me his equipment list, he sent it to me, what he wanted. I made him an offer, and he accepted. And so the next day I drove up there, just because I wanted to put my hands on the equipment, make sure everything was, legit. And I walked in and I see a letter from like the 96 Olympic team. And then I see all these like world record certifications and national championships and were won with barrels that were on rifles that he manufactured.
Wow.
And so, I mean, the guy was a legend in that bench rest community. And so, we executed the purchase, and and I remember driving back, the day, I drove up there one morning, verified the equipment, spent the day with them. And then the next day coming back home, I'm like, okay, we really got to do something with this other than making, Mac clone barrels with this legendary equipment and this manufacturing process that Clay had developed. And so we decided to get into long range bolt guns. And we, so because of our machining capabilities, we knew we could make the stock, i.e. a chassis. And we knew that we could make the barrel because we just bought a barrel company. And we considered for about a month the possibility of making the action. And it became, I've at that point in time, and this is late 2013. I mean, I've been in the manufacturing business for a long time. I knew the complexity that was involved in making an action. I mean, it was a 6 month to a year process. So we decided to back off on that concept, and then we started aligning ourselves with other action manufacturers. In hindsight, glad we did. And so that's what kind of got us into the bolt gun market. Now, it's an interesting story. As you could imagine, when we first got into the long range precision bolt gun market as a Mac clone manufacturer, we suffered serious branding issues.
Sure.
I mean, I remember, and Nick Leghorn was the writer for, and I don't know if he's still with them or not, but
No, I don't think he
yeah,
is, but
The Truth About Guns, right?
Yep. Truth About Guns. Yep.
And so he wrote this scathing article about our company and like, how dare we get into the long range bolt gun market? We're a Mac clone manufacturer. And so, he put this really, non-complimentary review on his website. Well, I chimed in. I'm like, hey, Nick, you don't know anything about my company. I challenge you to come down and see who we are as a company. And then all of his little cronies started piling on him like, yeah, Nick, you need to go down there. Well, so he did it. And he came down, spent about 2 days with us. And the visit turned out, it started out cold, as you would imagine.
Sure.
It finished wonderfully. He wrote a great article on our company, and at the end of the year, they gave an MPA 308BA, after they did a review on it, which is about a month after he came down, they gave it the Editor's Choice Firearm of the Year award.
Wow.
So we went from
What year was that, Phil?
I was in 2014.
Okay.
Yeah, and so that was a that was a nice turnaround. Going from him and the guys at the Truth About Guns kind of making fun of our company, like, hey, are you guys crazy, to giving us that award? That was a nice turnaround. So
Yeah.
but yeah, that's kind of how we got into the long range bolt gun world.
Well, what do you think was the driving factor behind, him writing that article to begin with?
Well, that is a good question. Look, the Mac clone, the Defender platform that we still have, and we still sell a ridiculous number of them. I mean, it's a novelty. And I don't mean that in a negative way. It's a unique firearm that is, it's a great truck gun. It's a great home defense product.
It's fun to shoot.
But it's a great gun just to go out and shoot and have fun with. I mean, it's got historical value. You see them in video games. I mean, like it's got an aura about it, but they're in each of the areas that it serves, they're probably better options,
Right.
So so I think he had done a review on one of our, like a 5.7 DMG SBR that we did, which is a 5.7 by 28 caliber, side folding SBR that we introduced. And he basically just like, why would anyone want to buy this thing? So he already kind of had it in for our company. And so I think that's what kind of got it started. But it, the Truth About Guns, I mean, they kind of, their shtick is kind of, okay, we're not going to be a paid advertising entity for a firearms company, right? So we're going to say it like it is, and we're going to kind of lean more towards being hypercritical about a product if we don't like it. I mean, that's their thing. That's their place in that market.
If you've never seen the product, I think that, and I get it, everybody, I don't care if you got a YouTube channel or whatever else you got going on in that sphere, we've all made mistakes on different things like that. But at the same time, I mean, I'm always, one of the things I constantly mention in our videos, I always think it's kind of funny how the firearms world in general, we tend to lose some objectivity, and it almost becomes religious to some degree, whether it's brand names, whether it's whatever it is. I'm always curious what's behind that mindset. And I think that's just one of those things where it's like you have, and I think it's even more so in the precision rifle world, where you have this world and there's kind of, I don't know, denominations. You got F class, you got bench rest, you got PRS type shooters, NRL type shooters, and it always is funny to me how emotionally driven, I guess, some of that stuff is, or comments, or whatever it is. It's just, I think it's an interesting dynamic, and I'm always curious to explore, people's mindsets behind that, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, that's a good point. So like, and obviously for people who know our company, we have been very successful in the long range bolt gun chassis that we have manufactured since 2014. And, you want to talk about creating a social media firestorm, is put a post on Facebook and said, who makes the best stalker chassis? And oh my gosh, I mean, it's a battle. I mean, you just sit like, the memes of somebody with popcorn and a beer sitting there watching the show. It's amazing how, hypersensitive that a lot of people are if you don't agree with that the MPA makes the best chassis, or Foundation makes the best stock, or, XLR or whatever. I mean, it's crazy. And like behind the scenes, like, I mean, me and John Kyle from Foundation, I consider them, I mean, we have a very positive relationship. I mean, and same thing with, Kyle Rutenberg from MDT. He recently left, but he was one of the principals of the company. he and I got along great. You know, I mean, they're like behind the scenes, you know, these staunch competitors of ours, we get along great. We have very good relationships, and, you know, but out there in the general market, you know, it's the customers seem to be a lot more combative and, you know, and territorial than, you know, than certainly what it needs to be. But hey, look, if they've got passion for the product, which I think a lot of it is, I think, like, you know, so in as a firearms manufacturer, as a firearms user, as, you know, you know, this world that we're in right now, everybody's not on our side,
Right.
Right.
you know, and so we, you know, naturally we tend to be a little bit more protective about something that we feel so passionate about. I mean, like, we love guns. We love what they represent. We love the Second Amendment. We love patriotism, you know, and country and all those things that all of us mean so much, right? And
Right.
people attack that from the outside, you know, people that don't have those same feelings. And so I think that, you know, you know, that shield that we put up, I think kind of carries over into other things related to the firearms market. You know, like, you know, is it a Glock or a SIG? Is it a, you know, MDT or an MPA? Is it a tactical shotgun or a, you know, or whatever? I mean, like, all people have very strong opinions about it. And I think a lot of it just kind of carries over from just the general feeling that we have about, like, hey, like, we kind of need to be really protective about our feelings about this market and be strong and don't give up. Right. So I don't know.
Yeah,
That's just
and
an opinion.
I also understand too. I think some of that is driven because we are an industry that's under attack all the time as it is. You know, both from a legal and regulation standpoint, political standpoint. So I think people are guarded, and that's one of the things that I've talked about. You know, I've given very few negative reviews on guns, and I've almost gotten to a point to where, or really any products. As a matter of fact, my policy is that if I get in a product that I think sucks, now all I do is give feedback to the manufacturer and just won't review it. You know, starting off this channel, there was a couple of rifles. I'll just say Savage, for instance, the Savage 110 Elite. I did a review on. It was one of the first rifle reviews I ever did. I opened that box up and I kind of did an unboxing, and I was like, oh, there's some great features on here for a price point. It's good. And then, like, the next video that I was going to do was actually shooting it. And I started running into some issues, and then those issues became one of those things where, finding out these were known issues, it was a feeding and cycling issue that I was having. And come to find out, it was an industry-wide, well-known, and we were getting hundreds of emails, you know, and emails and comments on YouTube and other platforms saying, hey, you know, I've reached out to Savage, number one, that they say they don't know that this problem exists. It was just one of those things, right? And again, I even not feel bad, but I don't even like mentioning the company, but again, this is kind of well-known as far as us being involved with it.
But
Go ahead.
also at the time, I think your reason for putting anything out at all wasn't because there was necessarily an issue with the
No.
rifle. It was because Savage was not addressing the issue at all, and it was a widely known issue.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
And that was my biggest problem with it. And then now
I felt like we were Savage customer support for a while. We were getting so many phone calls and emails. I was like,
yeah,
Savage needs
people
to pay
were
us.
calling us like, hey, what can we do about it? I'm like, I don't know, man. Call Savage, you know?
Sounds like it's been a trend over the years. though,
Yeah,
too, though.
yeah.
So,
I feel like
from the text we get from you, Summer,
Yeah.
you hear about stuff.
So, you know, it was one of those. And the other reason that I ended up being a little bit more forceful than I probably would have been on that was, you know, that was a valuable lesson for me to learn, because just based on my unboxing, without ever seeing any performance or anything else, people were like, Gary, I bought this gun
You said
because
it
of
was
that
good.
review. And
Crap.
you know, I was like, hey, look, this is an unboxing. All I did was unbox this thing. It wasn't, you know, I told you I was going to do more reviews. I wouldn't have bought a rifle based on an unboxing. And I thought, but again, now
So
I
you
have,
unboxing it, Gary. So
Yeah.
it's like, it's got to be good.
well,
Well-
I mean, for the features that it had,
I'm just saying.
I think that was the last unboxing you did.
it was
I
definitely.
mean, if people see you in a
definitely-
Speedo, they're probably going to buy that Speedo too. You know what I mean?
no.
I don't-
Especially the yellow ones.
This
Burn my eyeballs first.
This went in a
I'm
weird
just saying.
direction.
That's not. I'm just saying. Anything you review, Gary, people's going to buy it.
Anyways, yeah. So Yeah, but the other part of that was all the like the hate mail and just stupid comments like, oh, you were hired to, attack Savage, or all these things that.
Where's that paycheck, Gary?
Yeah, I wish I had that paycheck. All these things that were being attributed to me that I was like, Jesus Christ, man, all I did was show you exactly. And on top of that, what I did, not only did I show you the problem, I actually took a video and I found a fix and I showed you how to fix it, which Savage isn't doing. And again, that gun's still, matter of fact, I think it's right up to the very top there. We still have that gun as a student gun, and now it works fine. But that was eye-opening for me, because I realized, number one, you got to be careful what you say, because I never thought that somebody would give so much credence to a basic unboxing. And number two, it made me realize, there's some people out there with some like severe brand loyalty. And part of that, again, kind of one of the things that I said in that, in one of the follow-on videos is like, look, I am all about protecting our industry, the companies in our industry. We're obviously very under attack, but at the same time, we got to hold people accountable, because what I don't want to do is I want Savage to be successful. I don't want Savage to end up like Remington. And if they are going to develop a situation where they have really bad customer service and they're known for it, and they're putting out a product that they know is bad, but then denying it. I still get emails to this day. Hey, I called Savage with this problem, and they said, oh, we've never heard of that before. It's just not, it's just one of those things where I think in that sense, it's protecting, number one, the people that watch our videos, the people that, come to us, for information. And number two, it's protecting the industry, because I think we need to hold, companies accountable, regardless of what's going on, because in the end, if they follow that advice, if they say, hey, this is a lesson learned here, they're going to be more successful. That to me is what it's about.
Well, that's okay. So from our standpoint as a manufacturer, right?
Mhm.
And of course, we're not perfect. I
Sure.
would love to say that every gun we've ever shipped out has never had a technical issue, period. And of course, I can't say that. It is funny though, that when, you contact a manufacturer and you tell them a problem and they say, oh, we've never heard that before. That is maddening when you hear that. You just want to
Well, the difference is, Phil, that the response to the problem, because I know that the one or two times that I've known of any small little thing, the minute you
Yeah, I'm not
guys
talking about that.
found out about it, you address it immediately. It's not, oh, well, we don't know what's going on. It's, we're going to take care of that. Don't worry about it.
And no questions. That's one of the things that I wanted to talk to you about, to make sure that, I talked about on this, was our experience as a dealer. I think that's important for customers that trust us, that trust MPA. We have sold well over 200 guns at this point, MasterPiece arms, rifles. And folks, there's been two issues that I can think of right now, two function issues with rifles. And within 24 hours of that issue, we were contacted by the client, or at least as soon as the client contacted us, usually within hours. Number one, I texted or emailed Phil directly, and on both occasions, Phil called me back or passed me on to Woody, which is, I don't know what his technical title is, but he builds all the guns over there, right? And Woody is just a genius when it comes to all things technical, when it comes to firearms in general. I enjoy Woody needs to give a master class on email brevity, because that guy has that down. But
Yes, he does. I enjoy it. You get a short, sweet answer.
you get like,
That's awesome.
That guy can say more in about 8 words than anybody that I know.
That's awesome.
But again, you guys, and within 24 hours, that customer has had a response going on.
Yeah.
And, and ultimately, as quickly as possible. On one occasion, I know it required for the rifle be turned to sent back.
And we had an RMA within 12 hours.
Within 12 hours.
You know.
So, our relationship, or our experience with MPA folks has been awesome. Anytime that we have a technical question, there's many times that I've either texted Woody emailed Woody or emailed Phil, and most of the time, Phil, you've called me on a couple of those. Like, I remember one time you were like, "Well, it takes a brave man to ask basically a stupid question," but something along those lines. Like, hey man, if I don't know the answer, I'll let you know I don't know the answer. I'm not going to pretend otherwise. But again, always responsive. There's a clear. And there's other conversations that we've had where you guys are very protective of your dealers. Even before this podcast, we were having a little chat about that. But again, our experience as a dealer for MPA has been the best experience that we've had. The relationship that we have with you, with Jana, with Woody has been the best relationship that we could possibly have.
Yeah.
So, again, I appreciate that. I think it says a lot about your company, a lot about your ethics and the way that you guys do business. And we couldn't be happier to be, part of the MPA team. That's for sure.
Well, thank you for saying that. I mean, I'll tell you, like, from our experience, and I think some of the challenges I think other companies may face, but as you guys know, I mean, I'm kind of the face of the company. I mean, I don't hide behind the scenes. I mean, I do some podcasts on my own. I've been match directing PRS matches for years, been, competitive shooting out there. I mean, I'm very much in the fabric of the community out there. So, when we have a problem with one of our products, there's a sense of pride that I have of like, hey, we need to fix this. I mean, I've always felt that, like, we don't sell inexpensive products. And so when somebody makes that kind of investment, they deserve to be taken care of if they have a technical problem. And I'm very proud of my company. I mean, we've got a great team and some great employees, and, the good Lord's blessed us in a lot of ways. And I want to make sure that, when people think of MPA, that they have good, positive feelings, that, that hopefully they've never had any kind of technical problem, but if they do, that we've stood behind it and taken care of them. But I think, there are a lot of, like you mentioned, Savage, and, Savage is a huge company, and, it's hard. I think it's, they sell a lot of guns. They are a high volume manufacturer. They're, I mean, I don't know what the multiplier is of how many more products they sell than us per year, but it's a huge number. And, and it's hard to find people that can discuss technical challenges to a firearm.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just not like, you can't just hire somebody for customer service and answer the phone and be effective at answering somebody's technical question of why, I'm having feeding issues or whatever. And, on top of the challenges we all have anyway, with finding people to work, but finding ones that are competent, that understand firearms from a technical standpoint, those individuals are not easy to find. We suffer from it too. Look, I take a very active role in the customer service of our company. But we don't, we're not 100% all the time. Sometimes there's a day or two that go by and it's unfortunate, but it just happens,
Sure.
So, but, look, I have been competitively shooting, since 2015, and I know how frustrating it is when there's a technical issue that is keeping you from using a firearm that you love, that you've invested a lot of money, that you've had all this excitement about being able to get it in and use it. And then, like, the wind gets removed from your sails because something happens, whatever it might be. And, and like our industry, I hear this a lot, that our industry suffers from a very poor perception of customer service.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in a lot of situations, that's right. But we try very hard, Lisa and Keith and Woody and, all the people in the various departments, that interact with our customers. They care about the company and they care about our products and they want our customers to be happy. But we're small enough to where we can do that. We're still a pretty good sized company, but I think that's the challenge with a lot of bigger companies. It's just hard to find people, and they're selling their business is based on volume. So they're putting out an enormous amount of product, and they just don't have the kind of technical personnel behind it to be able to support that volume. I think that's the biggest challenge.
Yeah, and one thing I want to address and talk to you about a little bit is, one of the biggest emails that we're getting right now that I thought was a good time to address tonight, and also kind of hear some from kind of behind the scenes over the last probably year or so, and I think I know the answer to most of these because I've had discussion with you, Woody, and I kind of get a sense of what's going on too. Obviously, lead times have expanded a little bit. Not a little bit. I mean, they've expanded a lot. And what I can tell, and I do tell clients this all the time, is like, look, folks, number one, I promise you one thing, that Summer and I want you to get your rifle as soon as possible. We do.
So does
And
MPA.
I know,
Yes.
and I know from
Yeah.
dealing with everybody at MPA that they want you to get your rifle as soon as possible as well. And I know, and I can understand. And what are the cool things about this business? There's nothing that I enjoy more than getting, a middle-aged man on the phone that we're talking. Well, that sounded really weird.
Yeah.
Hearing,
Why's it gotta be middle-aged, Gary?
There's nothing I like better
1-900
than a
numbers.
late night talk with a middle-aged man. But talking to dudes that have worked their entire lives and
To buy this rifle that
whatever, regardless of what's going on.
Keep
But
rolling.
they are, they're excited like a kid at Christmas about ordering a rifle, kind of like, their dream build. And it is so gratifying as a business owner to talk to people about that, to see those emails of how excited they are. And we understand, folks, that, when you were expecting it in however many weeks and it goes beyond that, we understand that it's disappointing to you. And it does say that the positives are you're excited about the product, and we want to make sure that you guys get that product. And again, I know that we're working hard behind the scenes to make sure that you get your rifle. And I know that MPA is behind the scenes working as hard as possible. And you may not always understand the reasons why your rifle is delayed. And we may not always understand but what I can tell you before even Phil gives his spiel on it is that, there are reasons, right? Nobody's going to take your money and run. MPA is clearly not going out of business anytime. We're not going out of business anytime. And again, when you order that rifle and it says however many weeks lead time, that is the best estimate that MPA has
at the time.
Based on the current conditions and with the economy the way it is, with regulations the way they are. And I know too, I think I'm just going to assume, Phil, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I know you guys switching actions and a couple other things. I can only imagine how that has impacted production overall. So with that being said, I'll shut up for a minute.
What?
Well, I'll tell you what, so for the first, what are we in November? So for the first 10 months of the year, we decided we're just going to take 2 weeks off a month and just chill out and not really worry about a whole lot, because we've been stressed out. People are giving us a hard time about
I'm coming to
our
work
lead
at
times.
MPA.
We're
That's
just
it.
like, screw it. I mean, if people are going to be mad, let's just give them a reason to be mad. Kind of like what was the old Monty Raitt song, give them something to talk about, right?
Yep.
But no, I'm just kidding completely. But like I'll tell you, it's a technical, it's okay. In the bolt action rifle platform, very technical product. There are, I think one of the things that part of our offering to the market out there that we feel good about is the amount of variation that we can provide to our customers, and so many different configurations, whether it be caliber and twist rate and barrel length and profiles and all the finishing options, whether you want it Cerakoted or multicolor Cerakote or anodized or polished. And then you get into all the different triggers and, the different actions. I mean, we have our main action manufacturer that we use, but we also use other action manufacturers, like, Defiance and Bighorn and Impact and Kelbleys and what have you. So it's a highly specialized technical build that we rely on a lot of industry partners, to supply. Like, we don't make triggers. I mean, like, triggers are very technical, especially we could, but we're not going down that path. Same thing with actions. And then, and then you get into some of the manufacturing, challenges. I mean, and I'll leave the people aspect of it out because we've got a really good group of people, but machines sometimes break down. Sometimes tooling fails prematurely that may have a long lead time. You may have, just these things that there's a lot of opportunities from the time that raw material comes in the door until the finished product leaves. There's a lot of opportunities for failure. I mean, manufacturing tolerance errors and, just things that can happen. And, I hope I don't sound like I'm making excuses, but
No,
it's
not at all.
just,
I don't
I
think
mean,
people, I mean, people just don't understand the complexity of it. And I understand that they don't understand that. And I think, you giving some insight on that, I think that means a lot to folks out there. I think it really does. And I think it's helpful.
we had a one of our large retailer, I won't use their name, but they, and it's been now probably about 3 or 4 years ago, they're a big company and they use UPC codes for everything coming in their door, right? So they, a UPC code is a uniform product code that has a unique number that's, I think it's like 10 or 11 digits long, and it's a barcode that applies specifically to a SKU. And for those out there who don't know what UPC codes are, and it's a way that these big companies receive something in. They zap it with a barcode reader. It goes into their system. It's been received and tracked, etc. And so they were like, okay, we want to buy a bunch of your rifles and pistols and chassis and everything else. And so we need a UPC code for every potential variation of a rifle we might ever order.
Jeez.
Like, okay, yeah, we can do that. And so when we started calculating it out, it was over 12,000 variations.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's like the Whopper at Burger King.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, just when you start, you start thinking about all the variations, like barrel length, barrel profile, and colors, and just and it was, and they were like, oh my gosh, and so we, that was an eye-opening understanding of like, we never really thought of it that way. I mean, I've never calculated it out like that. But
and then the other thing that people don't realize is you got to pay for every one of those UPCs to get a UPC on a product that is your own. You're paying a significant amount. I think it's like $70 for every UPC that you have. It's nuts.
Holy
yeah.
crap.
When you want to buy 10,000 of them, they give you a break.
Okay.
Good to know. Good to know.
but it was but anyway, so there's just there's a lot that and look, and things you want to try and give when you're trying to establish a lead time. At the time that you establish it, like if you ask me today, okay, I expect the lead time on this rifle to be whatever, 10 to 12 weeks. All right. Well, we could have an issue here in 3 weeks where a trigger tech that comes in from Canada has a strike at the border and it's down for a month. Right. And so, like, I told a guy 4 weeks ago, hey, your rifle's going to be ready in 10 to 12 weeks. Well, 4 weeks in advance, that's going out the window now.
Yeah.
And, and I wish I could say that we kind of talked about customer service, and it would be great to be able to relay that to our customer on a real live basis on every product that we manufacture. But I wish it was a reasonable thing to accomplish, but it's just not.
Well, that would require just so many man hours updating all that on a daily basis that.
It would. Yeah. I mean, it would be
crazy.
I believe
it'd be debilitating.
Hours, Summer.
Yeah. So, and it's interesting, for those who have been shooting precision hand-built firearms, pistols and rifles primarily, for 10 to 15 to 20 years, waiting 6 months to a year for a firearm was the norm.
Right.
I mean, like, if you want to spend, you want to get a rifle that can shoot a quarter MOA or 3/8 MOA, I mean, you're not buying it off the shelf.
No.
Right.
It's a long lead time. And in today's world that we live in, we suffer from what? Instant gratification. Hey, I think I want to buy it today. I want it here tomorrow.
Yep.
And that challenge, of course,
You're not
becomes more
selling MPAs on
compounded.
Amazon?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't sell on Amazon. No, we don't. But that certainly, I mean, and it's a, Gary, you fight, you deal with the same challenges that I do when you're working with a customer that is so excited about getting this product, and there's a delay. They're all hyped up on it, and thank goodness for that. I mean, we love the enthusiasm, we really do. And we wish that we could hit our lead times or improve them on every occasion. And sometimes we just don't. But I always tell customers, like, I know you're frustrated, but when you get the product, you'll be happy. And this 3 or 4 week delay or 2 week delay or whatever will go right out the window.
Yeah.
And they always are. I mean, on a almost daily basis, I get texts to the business phone of people sending pictures of their targets with their shot groups, and they're like, and even repeat, where like today I got a text from a client sending a picture of his shot group, and he's like, I just want to let you know again how happy I am with this rifle, and I love it, and here's what I shot today. And
Yeah.
it just happens all the time.
I just poke holes in the paper and then take pictures of that.
We got to own a gun to be able to poke holes.
Well, first of all, Jay, you're the only anti-gun 18 Bravo SF guy that the world has ever created.
You need a gun to shoot.
No,
it,
but
so.
you're absolutely right. What people don't realize, before we started selling MPAs, we were doing what every other gun dealer does. And again, we're primarily a training company that just happens to, you basically have to be in the retail business. So we started doing more and more of that. We started selling guns, and everything that we sell, folks, whether you see it on YouTube or whatever other platform, like, we review it. Like, we want to make sure that we're carrying the absolute best product in that genre, whatever it is. And of course, we started selling Daniel Defense. We started selling, other long guns that we know we had
some
tested.
Tikas.
Tikas. And the thing is, the frustrating part of that is number one, I've never sold one of those rifles and got somebody contact me and talking about how happy they were to get it. Number two, I got a lot of emails, but they were, hey, Gary, this gun's not functioning like the one that you shot on that video or whatever else. So, that is something that we don't experience with MPA.
Yeah.
We constantly get emails, texts, everything else. Hey, man, I am so happy I got this gun. I'm glad I waited to get this gun. And the fact of the matter is, one thing that I try to talk about, but I don't talk about it enough, is the value that you're getting out of those MPAs, out of a PMR Pro 2 at, $2,600. When some of these rifles, these off-the-shelf rifles, cost that much and don't have nearly the features, don't have the fit and finish, don't have the quality control, you're paying right about the same price, and some of them even more. I mean, honestly, if you get a Delta 5 Pro, which is a great production rifle, but it's a production rifle, by the time you put a folding stock on it, if you get a different color, you're at or above what you're paying for an MPA, folks. And it is not going to have, you're not going to have the pride of ownership. It's not going to have the feature sets. It's not going to have what you're getting out of that MPA. I mean, there's just no doubt about it. So the value that you get, and yes, some of you folks will have to wait a little while. What we've done a lot better is we're constantly every month putting in, stocking orders. So we are constantly buying rifles to stock in the shop, where for those of you that want to call us up, buy one off the shelf, we're trying to do better at that. But with that being said, if as long as with most of these production guns, it really is a grab. And I can tell you from experience selling them, some of them are really good, but I would say around 10%. I think 10% is a fair number. Around 10% or so, there's some sort of issue, some sort of customer dissatisfaction. And never mind the fact that you can't get it in the caliber that you want, or the color that you want, or the features that you want, with or without a muzzle brake, all the things that you get.
And at the end of the day, and Phil, you alluded to this earlier and talked a little bit about this earlier. At the end of the day, that customer dissatisfaction doesn't necessarily only go back to the manufacturer of the product that we sold. It comes back on us. And you talked about wanting to always make sure your customer is happy and loving to hear the stories. And we do the same. Like, I don't want to send a product out the door that someone's going to be unhappy with, and then I'm getting calls and I need to return it, or this is not a good product. And I think Gary and I function in our business that way where we carry good items that we can be proud to sell and that people are happy to get, and that we're not having to deal with people calling us unhappy.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Our West Virginia internet ran out there just for a second.
Yeah.
So one thing I just thought was interesting, I didn't know that Spencer barrels were down in Winchester. So we're literally like 20,
Well,
30
they
minutes.
used to be, right?
Yeah, I know,
that's
but I'm
pretty
just,
wild
Yeah.
when
I'm
he
just
said
saying,
that.
Yeah.
That blew my mind a
we're
little
just a couple miles north of
bit.
Winchester.
He didn't quite make it to our house when he did it, but
Yeah.
No.
You were close though.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're in the
No,
other
but
holler-
yeah, I
holler
want
over.
to. Yeah, and one thing you mentioned, and again, kind of talking about lead times and just kind of our kind of corporate kind of philosophy is, in the firearms industry, a lot of companies chase the market, and,
Mhm.
and what I mean by that is you're like when the political conditions or rhetoric are out there are driving gun sales,
Mm-hmm.
that you're always behind the curve going up. Like it's hard to get ahead of it.
Sure.
Mhm.
And so, you've got all these orders and oh my gosh, we got to put on a second shift. We got to hire a bunch of people. I don't care what it costs. We got to have the parts in here to get these guns out the door, and then when the market starts going down, and usually rapidly
Yeah.
in the market, then you're chasing it on the way down. And we, after 2000, and it happened in 2008 and 2013, when the market had those rapid accelerations and then slowed down dramatically.
Yeah.
And and when we got into this bolt gun market, we decided that we were not going to chase the market, that we were going to basically build a consistent quantity of products, in each of our platforms, the Defenders and the bolt action rifles, and now like the 2011 pistols and what have you. And if we had a longer lead time, it was okay. If we had inventory, which we haven't, it would be okay. So, and what that has, we did it for a number of reasons initially. What has turned out is our ability, to like the more consistent that we are in the quantities that we target every month, which is a very slow incline. It gives us the ability to really focus on making sure that we're doing as much as we can right. That the machining is done properly, for all the different components that we make in house, that the chambering processes are done, that the final product that's going out the door, that everyone is as consistent as we can be with each other, that like that has, it's the downside is sometimes when the market gets really strong, our lead times get longer. But I think it does two things. From the consistency, it helps us focus on being very efficient in our manufacturing processes. You mentioned like the you get a lot for your money, and I think you're right. We leverage our manufacturing. We've got 40 plus CNC machines in our manufacturing operations. We've got two different facilities, just under 50 employees. So we're not a small company, but I think we're very efficient in our manufacturing operations, and that does a couple of things. It makes things more consistent, and it kind of keeps our costs in check. And secondly, we feel as though it gives us a more consistent product that's going out the door every time. So, those two things are kind of a little bit of insight into, like a lot of companies, you look at the AR-15 market, and you see it. It's a roller coaster, and,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
and
Just like the
I'm
ammo
thankful
market.
that we're not in that market.
The modular silencers is kind of like the same thing right now. Everyone's chasing those things, like that's the next big thing, these modular silencers.
Yeah, it'll be big until it's not, right?
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Until it's not cool anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, Phil, let's talk a little bit about, so we got some new actions. One of the things, folks, I'm definitely going to be shooting a full video overview that will be more than just an unboxing of the new PMR Pros with the new actions, the new triggers. Phil, let's talk about that a little bit, as far as, where did that come about? As much as you want to get into that, if any,
Sure.
but more importantly, I think what you feel like the benefits of that new American rifle action versus the Curtis actions.
I have had, just as an aside, because I'm sure you'll talk about it, I have had several people ask me why you changed the trigger as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so what led to the change, and it mainly was on the action end, and the trigger kind of followed change in the action. You know, the market that we're in, this long range precision market, has been in a technology leap for a long time. You know, I mean, there's a lot of really smart people that are in it, that have a lot of really high level manufacturing skills, and there's some phenomenal products that are on the market, and it just keeps getting better and better. I mean, as a shooter, I love it. I mean, like, you know, it makes me feel like I can really shoot very well when I can hit these tiny little targets at these very long distances.
Yeah.
And it's, you know, and I know a little bit about shooting long range, but it's just, it shows you kind of where the market is going with these high tech and the quality of the products. And, you know, and so the, you know, the market that we're in from an action standpoint, the majority of them are Remington 700 clones.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, you look at the Curtis Action, and you look at Impact, and you look at Kelbley's and Bighorn, and oh gosh, Lone Peak, and a few others I've forgotten. Defiance, etc. You know, they're all based on the Remington 700 platform. You know, the round body action. You know, the footprint's the same basic features, right? And we are constantly trying to evolve our product. And when, you know, and so and look, and the market is very competitive. I mean, the long range market is one, there are a lot of, especially now, there are a lot of people who are in it, you know, so you want to continue to evolve your product to make it to where the customers see more value in the product. And so, you know, we decided that we wanted to consider some other options towards the end of, well, let's see, 22. And so, of course, the SHOT Show came up in the beginning of 23, back in January, and out in Las Vegas. And so I went out to the show, and I think that was the second year that we decided not to exhibit at the show. We'd been exhibiting at SHOT Show forever, and decided not to for a number of reasons. But I went out there to look for a couple of things, and specifically, and actions was one of them. And I've known Ted from American Rifle Company for a number of years, and Ted is a unique fella. He's a really good guy. He's ridiculously intelligent. He's a wonderful engineer, and he's great at CNC programming and machining and processing. You know, but he's out there. I mean, if he was on the podcast, then I would say it right there. I mean, like, and he would probably say, yeah, I am kind of out there. But
the best ones are.
Yeah. And so, you know, and so Ted and I sat down, and we had a little meeting, and he started going through the action and showing it to me. And I'm like, wow, that is, and I just kept thinking, man, okay. You know, he's always been kind of on the fringe, just from a design standpoint, on his actions, pushing the envelope. And after I had the meeting with him, I felt as though that it all came together in that action. There were just so many things about it that I thought were just phenomenal. And so, you know, we talked from a financial standpoint, as far as like what the actions were going to cost us. You know, of course, for us, you know, that's an important factor, because, you know, we are in a price range that has some considerations, like with the Precision Rifle Series and their production class. And, you know, you can't just say, okay, well, I'm going to spend another $400 or $500 on an action just because I think it's better. I mean, that financial aspect of it comes into play. And so after the discussions and meetings and emails and everything, it just made sense that that's the direction that we wanted to go. And, you know, and look, and you know, Chase is a friend of mine. And, you know, that was a challenge, and, you know, and having to make that call, you know, that call was not enjoyable, to say the least, of, you know, telling a guy who was a business associate who became a friend, hey, we're going to stop buying your product. You know, that was not, you know, anyway. So that's what kind of led to the change on the action. And then on the trigger, you know, so we had been using Trigger Tech, their diamonds and their specials, for years, and still do. And Trigger Tech is a great company. I mean, they are some phenomenal people. Their customer service is outstanding. I mean, Mark and Jill and you know, the whole team up there are just phenomenal people. And they've got a very nice trigger design. But one of the things that I like about the about the Bix'n Andy with the Tac Sport Pro is the adjustability that you have. And one of the challenges, and I'm gonna get, is it okay if I get a little technical?
Sure.
That's what you're here for, Phil.
Okay. So in the world that we live in this long range bolt gun world, you're dealing with a lot of standard designs that have to fit together and work perfectly, right? Like a Remington 700 clone action, a chassis that will accept all of those different actions. You've got magazines from different manufacturers
Yeah.
that have to fit up into the stock or the chassis and work with the action. And you've got a trigger, all these things got to fit together.
All made by different people,
From
all
different
supposed to fit
manufacturers.
together. Yep.
Exactly. Well, there's no international standard. Like there's no DIN standard or whatever, with a few minor exceptions. And so, one of the things in the relationship between a trigger and an action is the fitment between the cocking piece, which is on the bottom of the bolt,
Mm-hmm.
and the sear, which is on the top of the trigger. The two interact with each other.
Mhm.
And and being able to, we're getting to the point where, like, when you're, everything about long range precision shooting is about consistency and minimizing variation. I mean,
Yep.
everything.
Yep.
From the way that we manufacture the barrels, the chassis, mounts, everything. Powder weight variation, seating depth variation, the way that you pull the trigger, the way your shoulder pressure is, everything is about minimizing variation. And so one of the things that we really liked about that Bix trigger is the ability to adjust that sear up and down to where it makes ideal contact with the cocking piece on that action. Because like Trigger Tech and Bix'n Andy and other trigger manufacturers aren't making a specific trigger for a specific action.
Right.
Right. So like that relationship, that ability to make that adjustment up and down of that sear to the cocking piece on that action gives just a more consistent trigger pull. And like when you start like when you when you start using the trigger pull gauge and you start seeing the same number just when you're down in ounces, like when you're trying to get it like a 7-ounce trigger and it's like
Right.
7.1, 7.1, 7.2, 7.3, 7.1. Like that tells you that the trigger pull weight of that relationship between that trigger and that action is really good. And that does translate over to the accuracy potential of that rifle.
Absolutely.
Right.
Does. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that, is, and that was, and the guys from Bullet Central who bring that trigger in, the IPRF, which is the International Precision Rifle Federation, they've had a kind of a world championship event here, or they've had this past summer over in Italy, I believe. And then last year, the center fire was in France. I think next year, and it's going to go back and forth every 2 years. It'll be center fire, rim fire. So every year you're going to have a championship somewhere in the world. I think next year it's in the US. But in order for our rifle to fit into what they call their factory division, the manufacturer of the rifle had to have like the chassis and the action and the trigger and the barrel, et cetera, had to be manufactured by a manufacturer like MPA, or be manufactured by somebody else, i.e. Trigger Tech or Bix'n Andy, but be something that only we can buy, that has to be unique in its design, that's not general market. Right.
Sure.
And so when we approached Bix'n Andy about doing this, after we were kind of going down that path, like, hey, would you make us a branded trigger, a trigger that will have our name only on it, your patent number, and have a unique feature that's nothing like nothing else on the market? And they're like, absolutely. Like, okay, there you go. So that's what kind of led to that change.
Jay, throw up that comment that you were hovering over there. Throw that one up there. Richard Futrell says, aware that many people won't know how to set the adjustment relationship, or it work loose and create a dangerous situation. I'll address that, and then Phil, you can talk about that. Number one, if you're doing any adjustment, you should dry fire that thing many times and make sure that it's right before you actually load that thing up with ammo. But that is the nature of the game, folks. At the end of the day, people want rifles. They want everything on that gun adjustable so that you can do exactly what Phil's talking about. That's not for everybody, right? If you don't know anything about these types of things, number one, you know, start off with an off-the-shelf rifle. But again, you need to know what you're doing. But at the same time, what I don't ever want to see manufacturers do is, and I think this goes to, you know, the overall mindset of liberty and how we approach things in the United States to begin with is, you know what, the options need to be there. And if people want to use those options, then, you know, we don't need to dumb down everything for the lowest common denominator. I don't think that's how America was ever about. So, you know, and Ray, I see you over there. Ray Helms. Ray Helms, everybody. He's over there in the comments. Good to see you, Ray. But yeah, you can address that however you'd like to add to that, Phil.
Yeah. So, can you put the question up again?
Good job, Jay. Dropped the question already.
Oh,
And
sure.
I think Gary had asked the question.
Right
We'll
there.
put that up.
Right there, Jay. Right there. That
No
one.
problem,
That one, Jay, right there.
folks. I'm here to work for you.
Yeah. So, that is it's a great question, and I think one that I certainly could understand the concern about, because you know, and there's an adjustment on the rifle that we hadn't even talked about, which is on the MPA Elite action, the American Rifle Company coup de grace action, the ability to adjust the trigger front to back so that you can adjust the trigger housing.
Yeah.
You know, so, you know, there's a lot of adjustment in there, and you know, so the one thing about, you know, getting in when you start shooting long range, and I'll cover this from my own experiences. You know, when I first got into shooting, like when I bought Spencer rifle barrels, I shot a deer at 100 yards one time. I mean, like that was my long distance shooting, right? And so when you get into it, it's it's a process of a continuous learning.
Yeah.
You know, and everything, you know, and like you buy a precision round, you first long range bolt gun, and like, oh my gosh, I really don't want to take the barrel to action out of the chassis. Oh, like, well, like interaction with the customer, you got to take it out, put it back in. Oh,
Right.
I don't want to do that. Like, you know, then after they do it, like, oh, that was easy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you get into hand loading, like, oh gosh, I don't want to blow the gun up. Okay, well, don't put pistol powder in your rifle round. You'll be okay. Right? So just if you load pistol and you load rifle, do them in different parts of the house and don't intermingle them, and you'll be okay.
That's
you
right.
know, and like adjusting the trigger, like people like, oh my gosh, I don't want to adjust the trigger. Like it's simple. And and so like part of the role that we have, and Gary, you and I have talked about this because you want to do this on your own, which I think is fantastic. One of the reasons why I think you do so well in this market is educating your customers, is showing them how to make these adjustments.
Yeah.
And, you know, and from a danger standpoint, you know, the one adjusting trigger, that relationship, it does have a level of responsibility. Okay.
Sure.
Just to be clear. I mean, when you're making adjustments on that, you know, you've got to follow it up with a verification. And okay, so let's talk specifically about Gary's concern about I believe that was his name, about the danger aspect of it. So when you're making adjustments to a trigger, first thing you're doing is adjusting trigger pull weight. That's usually what most people want to do, and they normally want to make it lighter, right?
Yep.
Well, when you get done adjusting that trigger, what do you want to do? You want to try and get that trigger to slam fire. You want to take that bolt back and you want to slam it forward as hard as you can. And like slam it forward and close that bolt down. And you want to make sure that trigger is in that set position and doesn't release every time. And that's a responsibility when an individual takes on that, you know, that task of making an adjustment. You know, there's responsibility in doing so. Okay. And so that, you know, so if you're going to lighten the trigger, don't just lighten it to, if you're going from 1.5 pounds to 3 ounces, don't just pull it once with your pull gauge and be good to go and then put it back into the gun.
Yeah.
I mean, just sit there and keep
Work
running
that
that bolt forward. Make sure that trigger doesn't fall. You know,
well, and part of that too is also understanding what right looks like, what right feels like, know what a functions check on your rifle is, you know, understand what, you know, again, on those bolts, you'll see where that firing pin position is when it's fired and when it's not, and make sure that you know what's going on with that. So it does, like you said, it does require some research. It requires some responsibility, and get out there and do that. At the same time, I don't think again, most of the people that are buying MPAs don't want their options limited to where it is just take it out and shoot it. If you want that, you can go buy something off the shelf. In the same way, just like you said, I mean, it's just like reloading, right? You can hurt yourself really bad. But the last thing that we want is obviously, the government saying, you know what, we're not allowing anybody to reload, which this administration will definitely try to do that. I'm surprised they haven't already.
No doubt.
But again, making sure that you know what you're doing with that, and just being smart, folks. And if you don't know the answer, call somebody. You can call me. I'm sure you can call MPA. Don't be afraid. Look, I'm not afraid to be dumb. I ask stupid questions all the time. Ask my wife.
Amen.
But if you don't know, ask somebody that knows, whether it's a friend, whether it's the manufacturer, whatever else. Don't be afraid to give them a
I
call.
think the key word that Phil said many times is responsibility.
Yep.
And anytime you buy a firearm, there's a level of responsibility there, and the same goes with any of this.
Yeah.
I do want to say,
no, go ahead.
I do want to say a little bit about and again, going back to Gary's comment about, being safe and you don't want to create a dangerous situation. And inherently, a bolt action rifle is a pretty safe firearm.
About as safe as you can get. Yeah.
I mean, so look at the worst case scenarios. Okay. So let's just say that Gary, that was his name, right?
It was
It was
Richie.
Richie.
Ricky.
Close
Okay. I'm
enough.
sorry. Yeah.
Close
So
enough.
Ricky, he misadjusts the trigger, right? He puts the round in the chamber and he closes it, and you have a hammer follow.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Let's look at the absolute worst scenario. I know Ricky is a responsible gun owner, and he's going to treat every gun like it's fired, like it's loaded, right? So he closes that bolt, and what happens? It goes off. All
He's
right,
already
this is
on
like
target.
absolute worst case scenario, right?
Yep.
Well, I know Ricky's a safe gun owner, and that rifle is pointed down range anytime he is closing that bolt on a round.
Right.
Right. The chances of that happening, I've shot tens of thousands of bolt action rounds before. I've never had a situation where I closed the bolt and the gun went off. And I've had many occasions where I've closed the bolt and the firing pin followed and it protruded out. Like there's not enough energy behind it. Right.
You never had a slam fire, Phil?
No, not on a bolt gun. No. Now I've had issues where I've closed the bolt and I've had trigger failures.
Gotcha.
To where I've closed the bolt and the trigger's dead and I slowly lift the bolt and the gun goes off. That can happen. But again,
No, I definitely, mainly on like the old M24, the Remingtons, I definitely, on sniper teams for sure.
Yep. But when that happens though, the lugs are behind the lug abutments.
Yeah.
Like that bolt's not coming back at you.
No.
Yeah. So
I mean, the gun went off, but I'll tell you, on at least two of those occasions, I've never had it happen to me personally, but I've probably seen 3 or 4. But I know on 2 of those occasions was because people used bolt lug grease on the entire. They had it going all the way back to the sear.
Absolutely. Why
And
wouldn't you do that?
And because it's
Gotta
they
grease
thought
it up.
they thought it was bolt grease, as in it's going to make my action smoother. But those are the 2 times I know where that was without a doubt the cause. They went forward, firing pin went forward because it had too much grease in between there, and then and I wouldn't doubt our snipers are known for polishing freaking sears and things like that too. So that could have been a mix of both, older guns, all those things. But
That's funny. I've heard of slam fires on the M24s, but I've
seen
it
2
or
for sure
experienced
that
it.
I remember on M24s. And I feel like we had a slam fire at one of our courses. I don't remember what gun that was, but I could just be a bad memory. I don't know.
Yeah.
Bad dream.
But anyway, but yeah, I mean, look,
makes sense.
Ricky asked a good question, and but yeah, I mean, just be responsible. Verification, and just make sure anytime that you put a round in that chamber and you close the bolt, that it's pointed in a safe direction. I mean, just use good gun safety, right?
Absolutely.
I've had a couple slam fires, not personally, but I've been around them when they happened on semi-autos, but Not bolt
Now you're
guns.
just making stuff up.
I know,
Get
he
on
doesn't.
my
yeah,
bandwagon.
He's
yeah,
been
yeah.
around him. He doesn't own it. It's been around him.
Yeah,
Yes.
you know.
Semi-auto is a different story. That's a different story. Yeah. Yep.
See what happened was
Tomorrow Jason's gonna tell my stories as his.
Oh yeah,
tomorrow
he'd be like,
at
hey
work.
guys, listen,
Hey guys,
this happened
Yeah.
let me
last
tell you
night.
this one time at band camp. So speaking of the new arc, that coup de grace action that we got on there, let's talk a little bit about some of the benefits, folks. I can tell you, I find we got one in that was a gun that we have for student gun, and the thing is impressive. There's lots of things that I like about it, but I'll let Phil kind of talk about and make sure that I don't miss any of the technical information because he knows more than me 100%.
Well, so it's a the action, the basics of the design. Again, it's a Remington 700 clone. It's an integral lug and integral rail design, which means that the original Remington 700 design, the pick rail that's on top, what they call the scope base, was detachable. I mean, it was attached with screws and pins and held in place. And for many years, there were situations where that could come loose. And of course, if your scope base comes loose, your accuracy is going out the window, right?
Yep.
Well, and we've kind of gotten away from that. I mean, like the way the action manufacturers now, they're using bigger threads in there. They go through the pick rail. The pins are very tight as far as the location, and rails just don't typically come loose. But on an integral design, you have more strength and rigidity in the basic action body because you have that pure one-piece design, right? It's structurally sounder, and including the front lug, it's all one piece.
Right.
And that in the market, that is perceived as a higher value, and it does. It's more expensive to manufacture the action that way. Which
Absolutely,
from-
got to start
yeah,
off
from
with
the-
a much
from a-
larger chunk of steel.
Yeah, but from a feature standpoint, it's an enhanced design feature. The I get questions about this a lot. And we ship this as a standard, but on the bolt handle, it's got like a little spring camming feature. And so you close the bolt like you normally do, pull the trigger, fire goes, bullet goes down range, lift the bolt up, pull it back. When the bolt gets to the rear end of the travel, you feel the bolt handle kind of give some. There's a spring that's in a mechanism that's in the interface between the bolt handle and the bolt body. And what that's for, like Ted came up with that design here a number of years ago. And for those who shot a lot of long range, one of the things that is that occasionally you'll get a sticky case in that chamber. And it can happen for any number of reasons. It could be you're shooting when it's raining. It could be dusty. You could have done, you've got 25 reloadings out of your Lapua brass and you should have stopped at 23 and it's not springing back the way that it should. You didn't bump the shoulders back far enough, or you bumped them back too far. Any number of things can cause a round to be sticky in the chamber. And having that leverage effect where it comes back and you can kind of leverage further, it just helps pull that sticky piece of brass out of that chamber easier.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's a nice little feature that it has to it.
I like the way that feels too, to be honest with you. It has like a I don't know. Again, when you get to the complete rearward travel, the end of that, it's kind of cushy, kind of feels good. I like it.
It's kind of cushy.
It's pretty neat. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, first couple of times you do it, it's a little weird,
Mhm.
but after you've done it for a while, you kind of expect it, and it's just kind of nice, right? So the other, it's got a mechanical ejector. So on bolt actions, you typically have a spring ejector or a mechanical ejector. A spring ejector basically means that there's a pin that's got a spring behind it. It's always pushing out on the face of the cartridge, and an extractor on the other side. And when it comes back, as soon as that piece of spent brass gets in the ejection port, it flings it out because you got that pressure behind it.
Yep.
Or you have a mechanical ejector that the amount of force pushing that round off the face of the bolt determined by how hard you run that bolt.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you're out shooting groups and you're wanting to have the brass fall out there right next to the ejection port, just run that bolt back slow, and that round's just kind of trickle out. And if you're at a match and you're in a hurry and you run that bolt back fast, and that round's going to go out 10 feet to the right, so you can kind of control the ejection path of the, of the brass when it's coming out. And really, where I like it the best is where I'm shooting groups and I'm in a controlled environment, and I like, if you're a reloader, and I do a lot of reloading, brass is golden. You don't want to lose your brass. And if I can keep it a nice little pile, right there, right next to the ejection port, I'm cool with that. And it's also a control round feed design. So what that means is when the round, and this kind of falls also into the design of the ejector being mechanical, so that when the round is stripped out of the magazine, as the back of the bolt's pushing forward, the extractor groove and the brass rides up. Well, the face of the brass rides up the face of the bolt, and then it's the extractor and the claws in there hold on to that thing and then push it directly into the chamber. And it's an old, I think, an old Mousing field design. I mean, it's an old military design, that control round feed. It's been around for a long time. And the purpose behind it is to have more consistent feeding. So the control round feed is a feature of that action. It has one of the things, and it happens occasionally, somewhat rarely, but there are times where you do need to, if you're in a situation like a PRS match, or you're in a situation where, hey, I need to do some maintenance on my bolt and I have no tools, you can take the bolt apart with no tools and put it back together, which is kind of a nice feature.
It is nice. And I like the fact that you have, you can switch out just the bolt faces. That's actually nice.
Yes, absolutely.
Both from a simplicity standpoint, but also even a cost standpoint, as opposed to, paying $350 plus for an additional bolt. If you're running a different, a caliber that requires a different bolt face, it's nice just to be able to switch out that bolt. So that's a pretty cool feature as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing is the Action uses trigger hangers. So again, on the actions in this world that we're in, these Remington 700 clone actions, you typically have two different methods of attaching the trigger to the action. You either have a hanger, which is basically it's a piece of aluminum, and you attach the trigger to the hanger, and then you attach that trigger hanger to the sound assembly to the bottom of the action. The benefit of that is you get some fine tuning for some of the different triggers that are out there on the market. Like again, it's going back earlier, being able to fit all these different pieces together that are made by different manufacturers sometimes requires some massaging, and that's where the whole trigger hanger thing came from. And the other method of obviously is just you've got a slot in the bottom of the action, and you've got cross holes that you put the trigger up into that slot, run dowel pins through the bottom of the action body that hold the trigger in place, right? And you do that, you don't, your trigger's in the position that it's in. There's no adjustment up or down to it. Like it's there. There's no changing it. So like that trigger hanger, it does give you that option. The beauty of it also is that it gives you the ability to adjust that trigger assembly front to back.
Nice.
And somebody that's listening probably is I'm probably wrong in saying this, but I don't know any other actions in this market that do that. And you can, I mean, and what I mean by that is there are probably some hangers by some different manufacturers where you can, like the hanger gives you the ability to move it forward or backwards just based on the different hanger design, but not a single hanger that you can make an adjustment to a fastener and push it back like that's, or push it back forward, so that's, and that again, what that does, it kind of further enhances that fit between that cocking piece on the bolt and the sear and the trigger. But it also kind of gives you some adjustment to the cocking pressure, cock on open or cock on close. And that gives you some flexibility in fine tuning that feel. Like that's one of the things that, that I really like about that action is like how effortless it is to run that bolt. Like when you pull that trigger and that, everything's set now and you're lifting that bolt up and you're cocking that cocking piece, being able to make that adjustment makes that lifting pressure really light. That's super nice. It's almost like there's nothing in the chamber. It's so light.
Yeah.
So it's got a lot of really cool features to it.
No, it does, and it's a smoother action for sure. I don't really. That's something that I don't necessarily. I personally don't really care if an action is quote unquote smooth. It's nice to have a smooth action, but what I want is a reliable action that I can run fast if I want to, and I know it's going to feed. You know, there's some really smooth actions out there that don't feed well. This one so far, I've shot 2 different ones. I've ran them both hard. You know, had no issues with that whatsoever, and was very impressed with the overall cycling of it, the way everything felt with it. And I'll tell you, I like the look. It looks much more premium. I know looks aren't everything, but it looks like a nice action. I really like that action. It looks like a modern. It looks more modern than, and it looks higher end than the Curtis. You know, take that for what it's worth. All my MPAs over there, all Curtis actions. I'm happy with them, love them. But at the same time, you know what? I do have a question on that, Phil.
You were jelly the other day.
I was a little jelly.
I know you
I
were.
was a little jelly. I was like, oh.
You got that customer
I was
one
like,
in.
oh, now I got these old NPAs. No, they're freaking, they're all outdated.
I mean, you told somebody you needed to order just a whole new batch.
Well,
so
we're
I'm
ordering
sure
some
Phil
anyhow.
won't.
I
Phil
just
won't
want
mind.
to go back to where you said somebody else knows more than you. That's where I want to go back to the
You
beginning.
Well, there's
way
like-
back.
There's like at least 4 people in this world.
Yeah.
No. Phil's one of them. My wife is one of them.
Oh, that's for sure.
Ooh.
Wow.
Brownie
Wow.
Brownie points. There you go.
Lucky tonight.
Smart man right there. Saying it on camera
Yes, go to
too.
bed.
There you go.
Yeah, that's right. I am curious. One of the things I always thought was good, but it was something I always meant to ask you, or Woody, and never got around to it. On the old Curtis actions, one thing I noticed, every time that I get a rifle in, first thing I do is I check all the torque specs and everything. And one of the first things I always do is pull off that scope base. I end up freaking, degreasing all the threads in there, and then I reapply it with some actually Vibratight, and then I actually torque that down because I know you've been there. Everybody's
Let
been
me
there.
clarify. You say every rifle we get in. You mean every rifle that
Every
you're gonna-
rifle that I personally own.
Yes.
Every rifle I personally
Gotcha.
own. I'm not pulling your guys' rifles apart.
Yeah.
Don't worry. Well, that's what's added 3 weeks to the lead time right there. Gary's going through it. Tinkering with them.
Pull them apart.
Old Tinker Gary.
I just
All right.
felt the need to clarify.
I'm glad you did. People are like, son of a bitch.
But one thing I noticed on those, and I never tried prying or anything like that, but on the old Curtis ones, it seemed to have some sort of adhesive or something that you guys apply to. Is that correct, or did I just not move them more or enough?
It was just a Loctite, and I think it was
Okay.
blue. I don't think we put red on it, but I don't think there was any adhesive holding that rail down. I don't think so.
So the couple of them, I took out the screws, and there was Loctite on them. But then and maybe just a little bit of extra Loctite got on there where the scope base wasn't moving, and I wasn't going to start prying on it. I didn't put a lot of pressure on it. I was like, oh, it just didn't lift off. Like, a lot of times what I always see is like on a new production rifle, number one, as soon as you pull the screws out, it just falls off. And there's a bunch of oil underneath there, and that seeps down into the threads. And I always hate that because that's usually what leads to, your scope base is coming loose or something
You
like
just
that.
had to put a little MAN on it.
I just got to put a little MAN on it. I didn't put enough MAN on
True
it.
that.
All right. Fair enough.
Well, it's probably because one thing I will say about that is the Curtis did a really good job with that whole location of the dowel pin holes in the top of the action body.
Mhm.
And then, of course, the dowel pins are a very specific size, and then having that same hole location and size in that scope base and
Right.
having a really tight fit. Now
Yeah.
you can get away with having oversized holes and if it just falls right off. Well, it falls right off because there's probably more clearance than what it needed to be between the OD of that pin and the ID of that hole in the scope base.
It's
Right.
a lot easier to produce oversized holes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, you make a
These things fit
make a
together
3/8 hole for a
nicely.
quarter-inch dowel pin. It'll file right off. But
100%. No, I'm excited about the changes, and so far I like what I see. And folks, without a doubt, in the next couple of weeks, I'll be doing a full breakdown review of that new rifle, and I think you guys will like what you see. There's no doubt it's a big improvement on both the action and the trigger, and I think it's a great move for MPA. So I know a lot of you are, anytime that a company, and I was the same way, anytime a company changes some things,
Especially when everybody loves it, or
it's like,
or,
why are you fixing
yeah,
this?
right.
Yeah.
It ain't broke, but
Yeah.
it's a big improvement. I think you guys will really like that, and I'm actually really excited to shoot that video because I haven't pulled those firing pins apart or the bolt apart. I haven't got into the nitty gritty with all those things, and I'm looking forward to doing that. I'm all geeking out, ready to go.
Excellent.
Phil, what are some other things coming up with MPA? We talked about, is you think, is one of your goals down the road ever to produce your own action? I know you guys have come out with a lot of great new accessories. Where do you see MPA going in the direction of the next couple of years?
Well, we're not going to make our own action.
Okay.
That is, it's just there's a lot of really good actions on the market, and there's just not a need for it. I mean, I would like to say, oh yeah, we can come out with the best action ever made, right?
Right.
But we can't. I mean, like, that's just not our wheelhouse. And I mean, granted, we're heavily involved in the long range precision, bolt gun market, but that's just not an area that we want to go down. I mean, there are just too many good people doing it and making really good products. And for us, like we've always focused on coming up with methods to give shooters a better chance of hitting more tiny little targets at very long distances. Whether you're shooting PRS, you're shooting F class, you're shooting, you're hunting, shooting with your buddies, and you're trying to shoot a 4-inch circle at 1,000 yards and whatever. We are always trying to make it easier for shooters to be successful. Like, that's our driving force in everything that we do, right? And there are still some things in the bolt action rifle that are weaknesses. Things that are related to products that we manufacture that, that we feel as though that we can, again, kind of continue to follow that same path of making the products better and making the shooters have more success in shooting tiny little targets. So and that's in all aspects of it. You mean the things that, the way that we manufacture our barrels and to do the chambering work, and the enormous number of technical features that are on our chassis. Some that are very easy to see and understand, and other ones that most never will, but yet have a big impact on their performance. I mean, we've always been focused. I mean, and I think it's been a really good proving ground for our products is we want the best shooters in the country, in the world, running our products in very demanding competitive environments that will always, exploit the weaknesses of a product. That way, when we're successful in those areas, for the everyday shooter out there, the product's going to be excellent. And our products are excellent in the best shooters in the world hands in very challenging situations and environments, right? And so that,
and that's evident. I mean, you guys have done so much as far as just updating products just in the 2 years that we've been a dealer for you guys. You came out with the ESR chassis. You started making excellent optic rings. You guys got a slew of new accessories that I can't even think right now. I had a paper with the list, but every time I have paper in front of me, I go brain dead. But you just continued to innovate. And one of the things that I've been doing, I have a library on my phone. And I just started doing this like 3 weeks ago, and I wish I'd have done it like 6 months ago. But I've been going through every time I see a product advertisement or just any sort of advertisement. It's so funny. Almost anything that is advertising long range anything, there is a MasterPiece arms or at least a MasterPiece chassis in that picture. And I've been collecting those pictures as I see them. I probably got 15 or 20 now, but
That's
and I'm just
awesome.
going to make a short of it. But the funny thing is the funny thing, not the funny thing, the thing that obviously you should be proud of is that when it comes to long range precision, MPA is that, immediately associated with that, so that I think that's cool. And again, I have a lot of pride just being a part of it, just again, being part of the MPA team and having those, again, it's a big thing to me to walk into our shop and like seeing those rifles on the wall. That was,
They don't last long up there, folks.
they don't last long. As a matter of fact, the only ones that last any time are the ones that we've had up there for a while that we haven't even put on the website now.
Well, yeah. Well, now they are.
Well,
They're on the website.
they're on the
so
website.
They'll be
Folks,
gone,
you
they'll
want
be gone
guns.
tomorrow.
Yep.
Shotguns.
Yep. So anyways, if go check out our website. I'll leave it at that, or YouTube will shit their pants. But yeah, I think it's great. It says a lot about your company and everything that you guys are doing, continually innovating and setting the standard for the industry. I think that's really what it comes down to.
Well, I'd say one thing that I've always found interesting is like in the just look in the chassis world that we're in, right? And the chassis and stock market is very competitive. I mean, you've got MPA and you've got MDT and XLR, you got Foundation, you got oh gosh, who am I forgetting? So there are a lot of new ones that have kind of come on, but those are kind of the main ones that are out there.
Sure.
And up until John Kyle from Foundation, until he came around here recently, none of my competitors shot competitively. Throw Manners in there. All great companies with very good people that work for them. But when we first started going down this path back in 2013, 2014, 2015, I really kind of immersed myself into that precision rifle series world, and shooting a lot of matches and getting to know those shooters and what have you. And it's a game of subtleties. I mean, it really is. I mean, like a lot of really good rifles out there. I mean, all the components are all but it's, the subtleties are what make the difference in finishing first or finishing fifth or 15th or 20th or 50th or whatever. I mean, like the little subtleties kind of help out, and just, kind of being out there in that world and understanding, like when a shooter comes up to me and says, "Hey, I got this great idea." And it's like, "Oh, yeah, that's a great idea. Yeah. I mean, you mind if we use that?" "Yeah, please do." Or, I'll go to a match and I'll just shit can a stage, like just do terrible at it. And I'm like, okay, what can we do so that I don't do that again? Right. So, that, I mean, like that, being out there in in that competitive world with these shooters who are using our products that go so far outside of the world of the PRS world, when you talk about, military and law enforcement, hunting and whatever else, that PRS is a very leading edge, competitive arena that has a huge impact on the long range market. But, and I always thought it was kind of strange that none of my competitors really shot, and, we're competitive out there in that realm. John Kyle
or at least immersing themselves in that, whether they wanted to shoot or not. It just seems like the common sense thing to do.
Well, I mean, like, you can go to a match, you can be a sponsor, and you can hook it up with the guys or whatever. But, but when you're sitting there and you're, and you just cleaned a stage with tiny targets that from 300 to 1,000 yards, and, you're one of three people that cleaned the stage in a match, you understand why you did it.
Right.
And like that, it's a it's a very subtle little thing, but there's just technology in our design, in our just general philosophy than each of these products that we feel is just advantageous. And but I was going to say, I'm going to give credit to one of my competitors, and that's John Kyle Pruitt of Foundation Stocks. And it's, John and his wife and his family are phenomenal people. But John got into the sport after I did. I think he's been in the sport now for probably 4 years or so, 4 or 5 years. But he's doing the same thing. And if you're going to shoot a stock, Foundation makes a very good one.
Right.
But that certainly helped our company out, and just being able to, like, when somebody comes up with an idea, you understand what they're talking about. You understand the subtleties of the idea or concept. And then being able to kind of, my years in the manufacturing business and, being around a lot of very challenging CNC chip making applications and understanding what can be done and what can't be done, that's certainly, kind of tying all that together has certainly helped the company. That's for sure.
Absolutely. Hey, Jason, while we're doing this, I know we've kind of ignored you guys over in the comments. I want to remedy that. Jason, if you will, go through and just find some questions that we have
I
missed.
saw one from Richie up there. Right, you just scroll past it.
Okay.
Oh, here we go.
With a full out of
Fast.
fingers. Richie, right, one more, right there.
Switch from Cerakote to hard coat anodizing. Do you plan on switching from Cerakote to hard coat anodizing?
Well, okay, so hard coat anodizing, you've got a bunch of color options, and they're black and black
And
and
black.
gray and grayish black.
You can get a grayish
And if
black.
and if and if but now if you want to do a Teflon, if you want to do a Teflon infusion hard coat, then it'll be kind of a cream colored. But that isn't certainly a great idea. I'm just not sure if we're going to put that in place right now.
Yeah.
No, but I mean, look,
Yep.
and I understand this question. I mean, look, the hard coat certainly is a, from a tensile strength standpoint of what it does to the surface treatment of, in this case, a piece of aluminum. It certainly is an enhanced coating. It's just like the difference in using 6061 versus 7075 aluminum. And in the performance of a chassis, we just never saw any difference in the effect of using 7075, which is more expensive significantly than 6061, and you get the same results in the product. But
yeah,
we've actually we've looked at doing anodizing for our chassis, and we've actually been doing some polished anodizing and multicolor polished anodizing, which is an incredibly attractive finish. We've been doing that now for a couple of years, and we have one of our partners does that for us. But that is it's like a completely restored 67 Chevy. I mean, it's just beautiful. But the hard coat, we're probably not going to go down that path.
Now, is anodizing a more expensive process than Cerakote?
Well, in general, and we've looked at, you can do in just standard type 2 anodizing, which is what you typically see on the majority of products that are out there.
Yeah.
You can get them in reds and blues and greens and golds and black and other colors. The cost to do it is a little bit higher than Cerakote, but and there are some benefits to it, some subtle ones. But what we've been doing though is, and I didn't even know this existed until here a few years ago, but doing these multicolor anodizing. Anodizing is an immersion process. You stick the product down into a tank of fluid. And somebody told me here a few years ago, they showed me something. I'm like, oh, that's Cerakoted. That's not anodized. It's got 3 colors on it. And they were like, no, it's anodized. And I argued with them. I'm like, man, I've been doing this forever. You can't do that. And I was wrong. I mean, you can do it, and it provides some striking finishes. It's expensive. And then if you add the polishing aspect to it, so what we do is we will polish the chassis. We'll send it out to this company, and then they will do it in either single color or 2 color or multicolor. But I mean, it's, you're looking at a multicolor polished anodized chassis is about an additional $500.
Gotcha.
But it's a striking appearance. But anyway, so that's a long answer to the short question.
Sure. No, it's interesting.
There's a couple of questions there at the bottom. John Hopen has a question, I think.
With that, how's the development of DS9 been going? And are there any new things on the horizon there? Good question, John.
That's a great question, John. I would imagine John's probably followed that platform based on his question. So the DS platform is our double stack 1911 wide body double stack 1911 platform, which came through an acquisition of Freedom Gunworks back about 3 years ago. And the start of that was rocky. I mean, it just was. And we bought a company. We continue the manufacturing operation at the company location. And we realized after a relatively short period of time, we needed to integrate it into our main manufacturing location, just so we can kind of follow all the same methods and procedures and, quality standards, et cetera. And once we did that, we brought in a new product line manager that righted the ship, and now we again followed that same process of getting involved in the competitive shooting world. Primarily USPSA and IDPA and some IPSC. Obviously, it's not as big here in the U.S., but that platform now is doing amazingly well. It's been the platform is growing for us. With a lot of, we started out with a DS9 hybrid, which is a 5-inch, basically like government size pistol, and then we came out with a Commander, which is a 4¼ inch, and then we got into a Steel Challenge gun, which is a kind of like a race gun, but for using 9mm minor ammo, like factory ammo. And then we got into doing open guns and 9mm and now 38 Super Comp. And we've got some of the best shooters in the country now running our pistols and winning matches all the time and doing ridiculously well in nationals for the USPSA. And so it's been a great platform for us.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, folks, I'm posting a link right now. And that link is to Ray Helms. Just did over at X-Ring. He just did a 1-year review, I believe, on that pistol. I think you guys need to check that out. Phil sent me one. I've had it for a while. Some of you guys have shot it, and I've been meaning to get around to do a review. That thing is phenomenal. And I'll tell you, more importantly, if Ray gives his blessing on it, I mean, it says a lot. So go check out that review. I think that's worth watching. Yeah, no, it's an unbelievable platform when it comes to reliability, which is one of the biggest issues when we're talking about, these high-end 2011 guns. Having something that is more than a safe queen, and you're going to take it out there and run that thing actually and run it hard. And for it to be able to perform if you're doing any sort of competition, training, whatever you got going on. So far, everything I've thrown at that gun, it's been fine. This probably has 300 or 400 rounds through it so far. I let some folks shoot it at our opening day, that July, our grand opening.
July
I've
4th.
shot it some. It's yet to be clean. The thing still is running as smooth as the day that we got it. So pretty impressed so far with that. And again, Ray has a much more in-depth review, and he has a lot more time on that than I do. So I think that's worth it. And we're definitely going to start having those in the shop too. And especially once I get some more content on them. So I think that, I think Phil, MPA in that regard, as hot as the 2011s are right now. And there's a few companies that come to mind. I think there's plenty of room for MPA to squeeze their way in there without a doubt. And we will definitely do some more to shed some light on that market for sure. What other questions we got up there? Let's see.
Spook calling you out.
Yeah. Richie Futrell throws that up there when it comes. He's asking about right there.
Yeah.
We keep going to Richie tonight. He's got all the good questions. Phil, what is your favorite MPA? Gary seems to favor
What
the BA over the
chassis?
Matrix.
Actually, Gary
Favorite
likes
chassis.
the ESR.
And Richie, my name only has one R in it. Just go ahead and do some push-ups.
He's taking a shot at you. My favorite is the Matrix Pro, without question. It is just there's a lot of technology in it. It makes hitting little targets very easy. It's so stable, and like in the PRS, when you're shooting, it's amazing how that world has progressed now to the point where when you take like that Matrix Pro chassis and you've got a good rear bag, which turns into positional bag, like one made by Armageddon Gear or Weebad, like
Sure.
a Whiskey Charlie or Fortune Cookie or Game Changer or whatever, they throw the rifle down on a bag on a prop, and it's so prone. I mean, it's so stable. You think you're prone. Like that's what we're after. Like, and the Matrix it epitomizes everything that we've tried to put into a long range ultra precision chassis. And that's just like, it's just amazing to me sometimes just how well you can shoot that thing. Like when like when you're, I mean, it's funny, like when sometimes you're shooting prone, trying to shoot groups, and you've got a decent rear bag and kind of a marginal bipod, and you're trying to keep that reticle perfectly still on the target, and it's moving a half a tenth left and right, and this is prone, right? And now you get to the point now where you're using a good rear bag, and you've got a wide platform bipod, an AccuTac or an Atlas or one of the other ones that are out there that are really good, and the reticle doesn't move, right? And now you got to the point where you're shooting positional, off of a barricade or a rooftop or whatever, and you get that same zero movement of the reticle performance on a target when you're in this crazy position. Like that's pretty cool how it's gotten to that point.
And I do have a couple of those Matrix Pro rifles in the shop.
Yeah.
For anyone.
And folks,
For sale.
that's another one of the 20 videos that I've been meaning to get around to. But yeah, there's
We're gonna do it. I'm off.
There are some huge advantages with the Matrix. I will say I do personally prefer the BA comp. That is a extremely personal thing. But with
ESR,
that
I
being
thought you like the ESR.
well, that's what I mean. The ESR. I use those interchangeably. Probably wrong, technically wrong to do that. But folks, the other
That's
thing
why I'm
too
here.
is one thing that I plan on doing next year for sure is I'm going to go hit up some PRS matches, and I will try both of those. Right now, I don't shoot PRS competitively. I don't do a lot of shooting off of a barricade and things like that, but I can tell you, just shooting that off of a barricade or in other improvised shooting positions, there are some major, huge advantages with that. The bottom of that chassis is so much wider, so much more stable. So, again, one of the things that I like, and this is kind of really trivial at the end of the day, is the fact that we got a folding stock, or you can get a folding stock on that ESR chassis. Which I like that, just for the sake of cleaning that. So that's what I need you to do, Phil. I need you to go ahead and throw a hinge on that Matrix chassis.
Not going to happen.
That is. I haven't said anything so far where it feels like that. It's a great idea, Gary. We're gonna do that right away.
Well,
no,
not
look,
many
I mean,
ever
we
have.
that's
It's just a long line of forgotten suggestions.
It's a long line of no's.
Absolutely. What else we got up there? Any other questions? Gripes or complaints about summer?
I don't know. That sounds like me
here
when I suggest stuff to you.
Exactly.
A lot of no's.
A lot of
Maybe
no's.
an yes in there sometimes.
Sometimes I try, Jay. I try to find redeeming qualities here. I'm like, can we just do this and give it a bone? Like, no, that's going to ruin our business.
You didn't do Jay's voice, Gary. You usually do Jay's voice, but you missed it there. So I didn't know who was talking.
Jay's. Oh,
hey guys, my name's Jay.
There we go.
There we go. I got this great idea.
Yeah, there we go. No, I know
Gary should
who's
do
saying
this.
what? All right.
all right. What else we got going on? Any other questions up there worth throwing in there? One question I do have for you, Phil. Have you seen any issues as far as regulation? We see what's going on with the ATF. Have you guys experienced any issues on
Defund.
those?
Oh, geez, we could have a whole nother podcast. Here.
Defund.
Yeah.
well, I mean, we just went through a TTB excise tax audit. That was fun. You want to talk about that?
I don't even know what that is, but
It sounds great.
It is not. It is not a fun topic. I mean, you'll lose listeners just like that.
I heard tax and I was like, oh, that's not fun.
Yeah.
No, I mean, it's been pretty much status quo. We as we kind of talked about our industry is, we're not getting Christmas cards from the DNC this year, I don't think.
No.
I think that's true.
Dang it.
Yeah. So, the only concern I had here, and it's probably earlier this year, is, there've been up until probably a year and a half, 2 years ago, shipping firearms on commercial carriers. And I'm not talking about UPS or FedEx. I'm talking like, YRC and Southeastern Freight Lines. And, basically you're shipping truckloads or LTL, load to load. Right. But you start seeing a trend where some of the like Southeastern Freight Lines, which we're down here in the Southeast, but they pretty much go almost all the way across the country. They said no more firearms.
Really?
Yeah. Yep.
Wow.
And then you had oh gosh, YRC, which I think recently went out of business. They had the same thing, no more firearms. So now there's about 5 that will handle firearms. So like when we ship, most of the products we ship, like to you, probably come via UPS primarily, unless you order like a pallet of defenders or bolt guns, which you probably won't, but because they're anyway.
One day we will, Phil.
He might.
Yeah,
I'm
and
ordering
so
some. I've been meaning to. I just haven't got around to it yet.
and there, and then there was a piece of internet lore that started, I don't know, maybe a year ago, that UPS is no longer shipping firearms.
Yeah.
Remember that? Well, that pertained to a single entity down in Florida that I think was sending like ghost guns or
Yep.
some kind of something that was so fringe that he should have had not have shipping
They
capabilities.
told,
I mean, like,
they told him they weren't going to ship any more of his
Yeah,
firearms.
exactly.
Because I have
So-
received so many calls when that story first came out, and I did my research on it, and found the same thing that you said.
Well, and so, and I called my UPS person and I'm like, oh, that's just ridiculous. Don't worry about it. Well, then about a month later, we get contacted from UPS and they're like, hey, we're going to now you need to get a separate UPS account number for anything that is a serialized item versus non-serialized items. So like when we ship you a chassis, or we ship you a mount, or we ship you a magazine or whatever, something that's a non-serialized item that
Right.
goes on one of our UPS accounts or one of our UPS account numbers, a unique number. When it's a firearm, then it has to go on a separate UPS account number now.
Oh, interesting. So when you ship the receiver, it's got to go on a whole different thing.
Anything that's a serialized item,
Serialized.
a receiver, a gun, whatever, anything that's just the ATF controls, which ATF and UPS aren't in cahoots, but
right.
It's an item of concern that, you've seen, started with some freight companies saying no more firearms, and then UPS saying, oh, well, you can continue to ship them, but now they're under this separate account.
Right.
And there's a reason why they're doing it.
Yeah.
And why they're doing it is, I'm
Are they
sure there's
making
a
you
bunch of
specify
reasons
what
that
you're shipping, or that serialized piece? Are they making you specify it specifically? Or is it
Well,
just,
okay,
hey, this
so
is
let's
a
just say
serialized piece, I'm shipping it.
account number 1, 2, 3 is for everything else, and account number 3, 4, 5 is for firearms.
So they're,
Okay.
they're
So
not
they
making
know-
it say it's a rifle, it's a pistol.
Yeah, they're
it's
not saying
receiver.
it's a suppressor or that kind of
Right.
stuff. They're not dumbing it down that
No.
far.
No.
It's just
No.
a generalized bucket.
I'm gonna
It's
throw
called-
this out
It's
there.
called incrementalism. We're
Right.
moving in that
That's
direction.
where I was getting at. Okay.
I'm gonna throw this out there and just go with
Oh, here.
UPS has probably lost firearms, right? And now they're just command and control.
So that's a tighter tracking
it's
on
a
those
tighter
ones,
tracking.
right?
Yeah,
okay.
I want to say like, hey,
They're throwing Apple
it's
AirTags
kind
in
of like,
those.
No,
I would say it's kind of like, like, hey, I'm food allergy, right? Like, okay, we have to make sure this is blah blah blah.
I don't
right?
think so,
Well,
Jason.
that was
because
an
they all go.
interesting
They
analogy.
they go out on the when they leave MasterPiece Arms, whether it's shipped under one account number or another, they go out on the same truck, and they go
Yeah.
to the same hub, and then
No,
they come.
I understand
they,
that, but the
they're-
packages might be tracked separately,
Correct.
like differently,
Yeah.
right?
I don't think the
It's like a food.
package
It's like a
track-
food allergy. Jay said.
I don't think the
what he's
package
saying-
tracking number.
I bet what it is in the case of recovery, it might be
Correct, yeah.
easier to track down.
Right.
That's
Jay-
kind of what I'm going with.
Jay, do me a favor. There is a right there, Tommy Lanthier. He keeps commenting, and I've been meaning to address it. So you went up way too fast.
It's.
Full on. I know.
I'm
I
actually-
know what it is. I got it.
Lanthier.
I'm actually
All right,
familiar with
no.
the.
Scroll down some more. There's another one with
La-
more
Lanthier.
detail. You gotta scroll slowly, Jay.
I am scrolled all the way to the down.
Okay, then scroll back
Oh,
up.
there you go.
I can relate the
Okay,
story because I
hold on.
personally talked to this guy.
I know.
Okay.
There you go.
All right. Well, go ahead.
Tommy, number one, again, I'm sorry that's going on with you. You're from a gun dealer in Michigan. Yes, the number to MPA is on MPA's website. What you're probably going to need is you're going to need to call your dealer there in Michigan and get an order number from them. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, Phil. But again, I don't know. I'm not sure that we have enough information, or Phil would
Well,
have
just
enough information.
take care to Tommy here. Tommy, Phil at masterpiecearms.com is my email address. Send me an email and let me know the dealer that you ordered the rifle from, and let me know what you ordered, and then I can help you out from there.
Phil, we broke up there for a quick second. Can you give that email again one more time?
Yeah.
Yeah. Simple. Phil at masterpiecearms.com.
There you go.
Perfect.
Yeah.
There you go,
And so
Tommy.
Tommy, just send me an email. Let me
And
know
at the
which
top.
dealer you ordered it from and what you ordered, and then I can give you the information that you need.
Boom. Worth the chime in tonight, Tommy.
All right, folks. Well, we've been going on right at 2 hours. Phil's
Phil's
gotta
got
get
deer to go hunt.
he got to get some sleep and go hunt
Well, by
deer.
now it's time to get the
Now it's
I
coyote
think-
hunting because it's at night.
Well,
right. Coyote.
I also forgot.
They get away with the bullet, and you never know.
You know, the 1st and the 15th is that 2 weeks that MPA takes off anyhow every month.
Yeah,
So
that's it, Gary. You're losing me to MPA. I'm going down there.
I don't blame you. All right, folks. Hey, listen, again, number one, Phil, thank you for coming on. I think it's been enlightening and educational for everybody here on a lot of different topics, everything from gun manufacturing, understanding the process, why lead times increase. I think all that stuff is hugely important. And again, we appreciate you coming on. Folks, we appreciate you tuning in for sure. Make sure you go to Paramount Tactical, go check out our upcoming training schedules, which by the way are pretty much ended, but we will be getting those updated. We have a super exciting schedule for long range next year, and I plan on having those up. We're finalizing a few more things, but by the end of the month or so, we got a lot of cool things going on there.
Oh man.
And you guys are going to like that, as well as go to Paramount Tactical to check out all the gear on our site. The
Well-
only thing that we sell are items that we personally have tested and believe in, and Summer apparently has some
Well,
announcements to make.
You said exciting. I have exciting news. We just
Oh,
got
exciting news. Breaking news.
Go it.
breaking news.
Breaking news.
We just got in a huge order of Night Force scopes, and as you guys know, Night Force price is Night Force price. That's it. Never a sale, never a coupon. But for the month of November, we can offer you 10% off those Night Force
10%
scopes.
off.
They're already marked down on the website.
That's huge.
Couple of each in stock right now. So if there's something you're looking for, go get it before it's gone.
Also, folks, again, we are a zero compromise dealer. I'm finishing up that zero compromise review, and I will tell you, folks, I'm really impressed. Yeah, I'll cover it all in more detail in the review itself, but I'm gonna try to get that posted this Sunday. We'll see how that goes.
He's been working hard at that.
Yeah, that has been the bane of my existence, trying to get things aligned to where we can review that properly and give you good information, and we're getting there. Anyways, folks, again, we always appreciate you. Make sure you like, subscribe, do all those good things. Phil, if you will, stand by. We will close this out, but we really appreciate you guys. But until next time, stay armed, stay ready. We'll talk to you soon.